let's get into it. So let's have a look back over last week. Start with GU. Basically, we were opening, if I draw a line here, we were opening literally pretty much here. So all we needed to work out was this going to hold based on this? Are we going to drive up? Is this a trap? Or have we induced into the mitigation and we're going to push down? So literally coming into the week on the 4 hour was either reacting off of this low and pushing higher, or it was taking this low and pushing lower. That was literally the two options. EU had something very, very similar. And that was kind of the easiest outlook coming into the week. Okay. So if we go down, have a look. I don't really know why I didn't save that line, but that's fine. So let's find Monday open, which is here. Okay, so like I said, this point's either going to hold or it's not. Okay, coming into the week, London, we opened perfectly, taking this trap and using this as a smart money trap, which was quite clean. Let me remove this crap. That can go. We don't need any of that. Beautiful. All right, so coming into this point, we had mitigated and induced into mitigation. It was literally this point versus this point. What is going to hold? Let's jump down and let's have a look, see what the go was and see if there was anything Monday that we may have missed. So for London, we actually opened in this area here. Now, there was an entry to buy. So we had medium induced. So you've got obviously inducement, which is then pushed up, supply to demand that led into a break. We know Asia session wasn't going to hold. It hadn't come into this area of supply and it was in a gap. So the entry which Dylan tried to take was inducement low here into mitigation, push into this inducement low, and the limit was literally this here. Okay. 6 pip stop loss, covering the low, literally just targeting the high or targeting your 1 to 3, whatever you'd like to do, 1 to 3. There was no tag, and then it pushed through there. So unlucky, no tag. The inducement low was on open, just no entry. And then obviously the mitigation at that point, there was no way to get in past that point. Okay, we can look at this point once we've mitigated and completed the structure cycle to the upside. So this did induce into a mitigation. This did induce into a mitigation. So we're likely coming for this low here. It taking Asia higher, we're not interested. We just know that there would be a lot of people trapped in here. Reaction up, inducement low, leads into a break. Now you could have set something like this off of this break here like that, but given we were so close to the Asia lows, you would have targeted something like that and you would have caught a break even anyway. It runs 1 to 1. So for me, wasn't really interested. When you're kind of in a 50-50 range like this and you're moving up and down really, really quickly in between these 2 points, you don't want to get caught looking in between those areas. So nothing for us internally there. And then obviously as the session went on, we had this break and inducement into this further mitigation here, which was a 15-minute point, which was actually really, really clean. So this point was mitigated here. And I did look for a buy in here towards the end of this session in here. So obviously stepping our way up, waiting for price to come into this area here and give us a smart money trap. It reacted off of this really, really shit point here and push up and broke. So you could have looked at setting like something like that. I just think it was too mid-range and for me, not really enough to go off of. Once we've kind of pushed up into this area here, I'm not interested. So we had obviously this point here react off of that, create a supply to demand push up. We're looking to come back into this range. Inducement into mitigation, internal break, can look at setting something like that, or the second break here. So if you'd set the second break, the stop loss was just absolutely huge. So you'd be looking at that because there's no inducement in the range, unfortunately, nothing internally in there. So you would just be going off 2 breaks. Break even at the external high. This is being confirmed as a smart money trap with this reaction. And then you would be targeting the external high up here. Okay. This was valid, and I would say it's a missed entry. You've got this inducement into mitigation. You've also got this took the Asia low. It's then broken structure. So this to us is a medium inducement. Okay, medium inducement. This point, smart money trap here. Like that. That's the entry there. You've got inducement 1, inducement 2. break, second break. This is now confirmed as a smart money trap. Once you break this high, you can then set the last level here. You're at least covered by that inducement here. Really, really clean setup, and then break even at the high. So that was a missed entry. Given you're against the current structure cycle, you may take 1 to 3, but given that you've got a gap here, you've got Asia high sellers trapped in here, we know that this area itself is actually a smart money trap. So lots of confluences to come and target that point there for a 1 to 4. So missed trade, and obviously this one was no tag. Let me just get Matt in here. So this one, very, very clean entry, just unfortunately missed it, was very, very late in the session. A reason I didn't take it, and I will be taking in the future, is this was the hour before New York. So as I'm not trading New York anymore, that's still something I will be open to taking. It was very, very clean. Like I said, it was just on stock exchange open. That's why I didn't take it. So given medium inducement, Asia high that took Asia high, we know that it's coming for this high. You've got a mitigation, inducement into that mitigation here. Lots and lots of confluences lining up with that, coming to target this high. So that was clean. And then coming into New York here, nothing here. You've got to wait for either this mitigation here, which didn't give an entry, or you wait for the inducement of this entry here, which is literally like 6 hours after. So everyone's asleep here anyway. But this is very, very clean, just following internal structure, following the right structure. Quite a clean entry. Just unfortunately, no way to get in that. I reckon I'm lagging like a motherfucker at the moment. I reckon. Is it laggy on your end as well? Or are we good? No, I'm good. Beautiful. All right, we'll see if it fucking works then. So yes, very, very clean. Medium inducement, mitigation, and then obviously push out. Very, very clean entry. You've got trend line, etc., etc. Now, on an entry like this, because we are at that decisional, we're either going to push higher or lower from this point. Like I said, you can do like a 1 to 4, 50% off and then target the external high. That's actually quite valid. Or you can just do 1 to 3, 1 to 6, something like that. But a 1 to 4 is very, very clean. This is a very, very nice entry. Just the timing was a little bit off. But not trading New York now, I will be looking at something like that. Now, on the 15-minute, we're obviously medium induced here because this broke. You've either got a 2-leg or you've got a medium inducement low, which means medium inducement high. Mitigation, absolute fall off, okay? So nothing we can do here. We were trying to catch sells off of this, but we had no retracement in here. So buys off of this point make no sense. We have nothing in here that necessarily holds any weight. The distance between here and here, you need an inducement of some sort. So you need price to break to the upside, to then break to the downside to create that liquidity to the upside. And there was none of that at all in here. So there was no trades in here for London. Obviously, we came and broke that low that I was talking about. So being in such a 50-50 range off of this, you can look at this as a medium inducement or this area here as a medium inducement, which was quite clean. So we'll have a look in here and see if there was anything. I'm going to say that there wasn't, but we will have a look. So this is the inducement low, and then we kind of walk through this and see what happens. So you've got equal highs. You've got an internal break possibly. This then did a 2-leg to the downside, inducement into mitigation. So you've got 2 breaks here. All you're looking for is an inducement in this range and it's valid to trade. You've got an inducement here that leads to a break. You'd be looking for retests. So you could, as an aggressive entry, take something like this, but your entry would be on New York open-ish. So nothing internally in here, but we've got this point here, which is the smart money trap. Created a low, pushed high. We now have a new demand. This is if you trade New York. You've now pushed your way down into this point with no inducements internally. Push up, nothing in here. And confirm smart money trap. There's just nothing in here. So nothing for this day either. No way to necessarily catch this either unless you go off of break, and retest and set that off of the inducement. For me, very, very risky entry given that we've had no inducements down in the range at all. So all I'm kind of seeing is induce up, induce here, induce up, first inducement low, inducement high. So that's what I'm kind of seeing with this. So once you've got this protected low, you can look at setting something in here. It hasn't come into a valid supply, so there's nothing that can push it through here. You can look at setting that. But like I said, holds risk. If you had caught the first one, that may be something you look at. But On the surface, not a lot we can do here. Obviously pushed itself into the recent supply, looking for this to be a smart money trap. Very, very late in the session, but this was a valid one. You've obviously got push up, pull down here, smart money trap confirmed, and you wouldn't get in. So no entry there, unfortunately. But really, really good structure to the downside. And all this kind of relied on was just understanding where we are in the 4 hour and understanding that once we'd broken through this low, we were just coming lower. So inducement, mitigation, push lower. Now, coming into this session on this day, we are in a valid supply to demand here. This was the first trade that I took. So we've got supply to demand here. EU had good divergence with this. And then all I'm looking for is some type of 15-minute entry criteria for myself. What we've got is pull down, take of Asia low that then led to a break. Off of that, we've then broken low. And then I was looking for an entry. So this is a medium inducement into mitigation. Given the current scenario, we've then created an internal break like that. Looking to see if this supply, which that's the break here, so more or less that entire area is the valid supply. We need to find out if this is a smart money trap or not. What we end up happening is a 2-leg to the downside into the mitigation of our last point. We then have an internal break of structure here. That was enough for me to set the limit. I covered this point with a 7 pip stop loss and got slipped in here. Now, if we look on the 15-minute in terms of what we've got, once we've confirmed buys from this area, obviously break even at the take of the break and retest. Next areas we've got, we don't really have anything in here. Now, this reacted out of nothing, so this is just a supply here, so just a supply high. This, which we did take a sell off of, is a very bad point. This demand didn't hold any weight because it didn't mitigate anything. But you've got demand to supply, take of liquidity, internal retest and break. So more or less, this would be my first liquidity target. We've got a supply here for the second target, and then your extreme supply here, which created that low. This is a very, very shitty demand to supply. And on the 4 hour, like I've said, supply to demand. On the 4 hour, like I've said, we're bearish, okay? It makes no sense to do anything from that here. We are getting that medium inducement into mitigation here, which obviously creates that low. Now, the sell, which I will upload the case study at some point this weekend, was actually quite clean. Retest, which is a valid medium inducement. So this trade here ran 1 to 3, which is what I secured right here. Straightforward and simple. Pre-market entry, but given our 15-minute entry model with Asia session lows, I'm quite happy to take it at any time. Don't mind me, can't spell. Very, very straightforward. I'm happy to take that break even at the high, obviously. Now, in terms of this entry here, this is something that we all should have been on for. You've got an inducement high right here. You've then got area of smart money trap. You've then got second inducement high here off of that smart money trap, which comes into the break and also gives us our inducement high. The entry is off the internal break, which is this one here, covering the high for a 5.6 pip stop loss, targeting 1 to 3 as we're against the current momentum reacting out of a very weak supply. Or you can do something like take the lows. Now, my entry, I got pushed in at 6.6 because I was impatient and had a 6.5 pip stop loss. So this trade here, I just left profit on the table. If we read price the other way, you've got extreme, break. There's a take of liquidity here, obviously here, demand, internal break. Once I hit this demand and take that, I should have moved my stop to 1 to 2. Given that it's against the current momentum of the day and we're coming from such a shit supply, I should have just moved my stop to 1 to 2. There's no need to, like, I'm arguing over like 0.5. So poor mismanagement on my end, but the ideal entry does hit 1 to 3 exactly. Even with a 5.7, but 5.6 was the ideal. It smashes 1 to 3 and then push back up. So very, very clean trade here. Either or are valid, so it's been a good week so far coming into that. Now, coming into New York, reading structure, we've obviously induced into mitigation with slow complex pullback, medium inducement mitigation, looking to sell, and I just don't think there's an entry. I think, Matt, you tried to catch this one, it just didn't or maybe it was EU, just didn't come back up for you. But there's no entry here. No inducements, nothing to go off of, and then just melt, completing the structure cycle again. So up until this point, you've got 1 to 4, which is a very, very difficult one given timing, but is valid. This one, I believe, is an A+ entry at 1 to 3. You've got to take before open. This one, all of us should have taken. It's in the timing. We've had a medium inducement into a mitigation of an area. 1 to 3, if you take the right entry. If not, you catch a break even. Either or, there should have been a break even taken here, and then obviously melt off. Coming into the next day, medium inducement. Catalyst, we're just looking for why it's popped up, mitigation of this area. So we're just getting bearish structure, but at least we know why we're retracing, which is kind of key. So very, very clear. Medium inducement, push up, pull back down into this area here. It does medium induce again, so we get another medium inducement here, which pushes price back up. Now we can look to take a trade in here after you get that medium inducement. So there was no entry on GU here, but I'll walk through the EU one that happened at the same time. There's no sell here. You don't want to sell when you're this close to a medium inducement because you're going to get a push back up. Medium inducement is just a decisional. We've taken a decisional to the left. You've got internal break, reaction off point, no inducements here. Oh, it's given a slight inducement, very, very small. But break, you'd have to set it off the break, which is a very, very aggressive entry when you've got no retest. And you don't hit 1 to 3, I don't believe. Nope. So if you want to take an entry like that, it fits the rules, but for me, it's just too aggressive. So nothing internally here. Next, we've got obviously off of that medium inducement. It's against the current structure cycle. This point shouldn't hold as we've induced into the mitigation of this previous supply, and we're just constantly inducing high. This won't hold. We've had no 15-minute breaks of structure here. I mean, you can call that a 15-minute break if you like. For me, I more or less see this as a 2-leg that has then just come into an area. More or less, this is just an inducement high. Given the timing, inducement of the session. And then all we're looking for is a smart money trap somewhere in here. Really, really good. We've got liquidity to the downside, clear complex pullback, momentums to the downside. Just unfortunately no entry. You've got the internal break, which happens more or less here. You then retest that break, but there's no inducement off of that break and then melt. So the only way to set this is just off of an internal break, which none of us are going to set. And then there's no entry. So that kind of falls off a cliff. So unfortunately this week, sells were the entry. There was just no valid sell to catch the main move, which kind of sucks because it was really obvious we were selling. Major inducement coming into the next day. Price pushes itself down. This point, we were just looking to see if it held or not. Reason it was valid is simply it had taken liquidity and then pushed and broken. You also had internal retest into that point. So this is a valid supply for us, even given the current momentum. We've come into this point, fallen off. We then had this medium inducement. Now, this is where Callum took a really, really nice entry, which was actually quite clean. And I think given the current range, given EU, makes a lot of sense to take. So medium inducement, we then have our internal break and retest and push. Off of this, which the entire area is a smart money trap, we induce low. Now for me, I wouldn't set this off the induced low. I think it's a little bit too aggressive given how small this inducement is, but it's happened inside the range. It's happened off a smart money point. So you've got structure cycle, you've got smart money trap, and then you've got medium inducement. So you've got catalyst. What I'd be waiting for is obviously break, pull back down. I would be waiting for a second break, which is where I believe the limit was valid. Off of here, covering this internal low for a 6.8 pip stop loss, which does not hit 1 to 3. So break even, but it's valid to take. This inducement to me wouldn't have been enough to worry anyway, so I wouldn't have been taking profit here. But EU did actually take a 15-minute high. Something you guys, this will be like a bit of a nugget for you, is if you're going to take a trade off of a divergence, the one that takes liquidity will not hunt liquidity. The divergent pair you want to trade is the one that hasn't taken liquidity. Okay, so for instance, at this time, GU medium induced, EU didn't, EU respected. So EU is going to hunt liquidity quicker than what GU will. Okay? Just so you guys know, want to trade the pair, the lagging index, don't want to trade the one that's taken the liquidity. Just from a perspective of numbers, the one that hasn't taken the liquidity targets liquidity quicker. Okay, so just a little insight, little gold nugget for you guys. Off of this, there's no way to unfortunately get in this on a sell. It's an inducement high, no one's looking there. Then coming into the next session, for me, this is just all too sideways to take on GU. You're at a lower low. There's no 15-minute breaks. You have medium induced, but you've medium induced that far. You'd be looking for this to be a smart money trap, which it does prove to be. But for me, there's just not an entry here. It does like make equal lows, borderline. The only way to really read this is with diversions. So not a lot we can go off of there, but nonetheless, should have had a break even. This is a valid trade to take, very aggressive. This 1 to 3 is valid. You've just got to do your market out, look a little bit earlier to see that. This 1 to 3 will break even, either or, and this 1 to 4. So very, very tough week on GU. Very, very good reads. We knew where it was going. A lot of patience involved. There shouldn't have been any silly losses. There's no valid losses. Realistically, break even, no trade. So GU, if you've traded it to the rules of trading London session, trading in session, and trading medium inducements, you should have had 2 break evens. Maybe secure some profits on those, but 2 break evens make sense. If you follow medium inducements outside of timing a little bit, 1 to 4, 1 to 3. Okay, not a lot of opportunity on GU unfortunately this week, but valid nonetheless. If you guys got any questions about any of that, does that all kind of make sense? This one? Yeah.
There was another entry I saw, and I want to know why it was invalid.
Cool. What are you thinking?
This. No, never mind. I take it back.
You take it back? You sure you don't want to run through it?
No, you've done it already.
Is that the entry?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one's valid. It just doesn't hit 1 to 3.
Okay, yeah. And also the inducement thing you said earlier, induce in which direction?
Either or. So what you've got to work out is bias. Which way are we going? So in this case, we know that the pairs are more likely to go bullish. So if EU is in a point, it respects the point, and GU takes a point, EU will hunt liquidity quicker than what GU will. So you want to take EU. Take the lagging pair. Take the one that hasn't induced. Just something to keep in mind. Now, in this case, GU was better because of positioning in the range, but you will see that EU took liquidity quicker. And you'll notice this over time. The one, the divergence pair, the one that doesn't induce, will target liquidity quicker. Okay? Just a little nugget for you guys with all my fucking data I've collected. So you don't have to fuck around and find out. Cool. All right. So realistically, GU, 2 break evens. Okay. If you trade out of timing, you've got a 1 to 4, which I didn't take. I hesitated on, but I will be taking in the future. And then 1 to 3 pre-market, and obviously, like I said, so all right, pre-market and all right, timing. So those ones, depending on when you look. But 2 break evens on GU, very valid trades. This one you could have pulled a 1 to 3 out of if you had entered correctly, which I failed to do so. But that's kind of what there was on GU. Now, EU, same scenario. Opening the market, we're either going to take this low and push lower, or we're going to respect the low and push higher. We're literally at a point of indecision, and then kind of go off of that. So jumping into EU, what I'll do is mark out when the week started, which is here. Like I said, we're either going to take this low and push up, take this low and melt, or not take the low and respect it and push up. So coming into the week, had a major inducement on our session. Obviously, where we've opened here, we're taking this low. Like it's coming for this low. It's quite fucking obvious. Break of structure, we've come into the extreme of the range. This is either going to hold or it's not going to hold. So we're targeting 15-minute structure. Let's see if there's a trade in there, right? I don't think there is, but we'll have a look. So coming into this, we have internal break, which I'm not even going to bother calling that a 2-leg, but okay, it's a 2-leg. We've got inducement 1, second inducement, which proves that this is a smart money trap. This was valid to set. You don't get tagged in, unfortunately. So you don't get tagged in on that. And that runs 1 to 3 pretty quickly. So no tag, which sucks, but valid. Obviously, once we pull back and take this low, it's now valid to look again because you've had structure cycle play out and we haven't reacted from a supply yet off of the major inducement. So this is still valid to look. And we'll obviously see if there's an entry. So you've got an internal break with it's been retested and fucked around with, but nothing we can do there, which has a second break here, reacting off of here, pull up, push up, inducement low. It is now valid to set. That you do get tagged in. Now I had, and I'll show you what I had set. So this trade is valid simply off of inducement low. Fuck, wrong one. Inducement. Smart money trap confirmed. Break even at the high. Valid. And that does run 1 to 3. So this is very, very clean. I had this set. So I didn't get tagged. That's what I had set off of this break. Okay, no tag. Probably should have just had this set, especially off a major inducement. It's clearly going to buy up into a supply, and that was a clean entry. So you'd go, being it's against the current market momentum, you would probably go 1 to 3, just targeting the most recent supply. So that was very, very clean, valid trade, tag in, major inducement, mitigation of extreme, structure cycle, inducement of structure cycle, smart money trap reaction, enter. Okay, so there's multiple ticks in this. Very, very clean, like I said. I just put my entry at the wrong place. Coming into New York, we literally just induce this low and push. There's just no way in this. Yeah, good luck to you trying to get in that. In terms of medium inducement high, this is the next inducement, as this was a valid demand to supply into the mitigation of extreme. No entry off of that, and then it melts off. So valid trade. First one, you don't get tagged in. Second one goes 1 to 3 and runs 1 to 6, valid entry. So I would say that's a missed entry for all of us. It's now, depending on when you watch for London, like I said, I'm not trading New York anymore, so I'm watching the all of London up until the switchover. That's valid to take. So that's a missed trade on my half. Very, very clean. Like I said, just put my entry at the wrong place, so happens. Medium inducement into mitigation, so we're just repeating the structure cycle to the downside. Yeah, until New York Open. Yep. I will trade New York Open dependent on the structure cycle. Like the GU one I went through, I believe still was valid. It just was on New York Open, which is weird to trade. So I'm just kind of getting my bearings on that because it is a volatility time and they do build traps. So yeah, I'm not too mad about that. But this EU one, very, very clean. We've obviously then melted off of that. We've melted off of that. Now coming into the session, inducement into mitigation, we have one demand in this entire leg. This will not hold, okay? This is not holding. Structure cycle, 4-hour structure cycle, 15-minute structure cycle, everything is bearish. Once we push through the decisional here, which is so far away from this low, all I was looking for to trade this was that and catch that. We didn't even get that. It literally just melted off. So nothing in London, which then forces its way down to this mitigation here. And we'll kind of see if there's a reaction here. Knowing that this is a smart money trap, this is a short-term buy. So if you're going to take a buy like this, understand that the sell is 10 times more valid and you would rather wait for the sell. But understanding you're at an extreme leg that has a decisional, you will get a reaction. So inducement into mitigation, we do actually build liquidity and induce, minor induce into this point, which builds a little bit more credibility to the point. We then break up. We then induce low, so we have push up and inducement low into this point, which then breaks up again. We still haven't reached supply yet. It's tapped into supply here on open, so we haven't done anything yet. There's no entries internally in here yet. New York Open forces itself down into this point. There's no smart money trap reactions in here. Inducement into mitigation of this bottom point, which then breaks. Now, in terms of an entry off of this, it actually is valid. So if we read through this, I'll read through this a little bit slower so it actually makes fucking sense. Inducement, 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 break. So we've had 2 breaks with 2 inducements. That's our structure cycle. 1 leg, take a structure cycle, push up, which gives us a 2 leg into mitigation. This break is now valid to set. Once you get the second break in this point, you can valid to set that. Break even at the high, so you would have this set here. Covering the low. It's a smart money point. You obviously don't get reaction, but that's a valid break even to take. Very late in the session, an hour after. Like I said, when you get this internal and you can't even get 1 to 3 to the smart money trap high, it's probably not worth taking. It's like a 1 to 1, so it's literally not even worth it at all. But it is a valid trade to take. If you get in earlier, it still doesn't really run to it. So that to me is the entry. Smart money trap confirmed with the 2 breaks out of the structure cycle range. Break even at the first inducement into mitigation. Push up. Now, in terms of catching this in the opposite direction, if this is a smart money trap, which we know it is based on the structure cycle, we've now taken a valid high. All we're looking for is for an entry. So it's getting late, but if you're still up watching, you're still up watching. Internal break. We're looking for this to be a smart money trap, which it is. Push up that leads into a break that actually leads to that as well. So really, really clean. So you've got inducement, inducement, internal break. We still don't want to set that. What we're looking for is this to be a smart money trap, which it is. Push up, which internally induces, and comes into our range of our 1 minute break as well. So it ticks multiple boxes. You would then look to get in as it breaks internally, which is here, covering this high. Once it breaks here, you break even, so no problems at all. Targeting the extreme low, 1 to 3. So that's valid if you trade New York and you didn't catch that. It's either because you're asleep or you missed it. But that's very, very valid there.
Why is the second inducement not enough?
So only problem being is because we've broke, retested, push, this point is a supply to demand. This point can push up. So what I'm looking for is a second inducement away from this one to cover myself. Because yes, you are right. 110% given context, it's worth to actually take off the first inducement. But given that this could be a bullish point, I want an extra confirmation to cover my ass, basically. Okay. Moment you get a bullish read in time with a bearish read, just wait for another inducement away from your inducement you're trading from. 1, you'll get a better pinpoint entry anyway, and 2, you'll just cover your ass. That's kind of the reasons behind that. Just a little bit of patience, but that one's quite valid. 1 to 3, fucking clean as shit. You're in and out pretty quickly. It's just you've got to stay up 2 hours. So I wouldn't be pissed if you didn't take that. Funnily enough, that's actually the only entry that actually follows the structure cycle all week. So that's the only A+ entry, because it's the only one that goes with the current structure cycle, and it's the only one that runs. It just came 2 hours into New York, so I doubt anyone took that. What we then do is major induce to the left, catalyst for a trade, push itself up. Now, there might be a trade in here. Is this? This might be a trade in here. Let's have a look. So, major inducement. Looking for this to be a smart money trap. So what have we got? Major inducement, minor inducement, internal break, then creates liquidity. Smart money trap. Okay, push down, induce. You did have an early inducement here. Only reason I wouldn't take it is it's just so high in the range. So you did have this on London Open. I think Dylan took this. It is valid. I was in GU at the time, so I didn't have to worry, but that is valid. Yeah, Yeah, that's pretty valid. Inducement low, smart money trap confirmed. It is valid to set that. So that's a valid loss. But the re-entry is actually a lot cleaner. Inducement in the range, break, break. You would then set, because that makes equal highs, you would have this set covering that. 1 to 3, which is valid. So if you took a loss here, or if you took the second trade, both are valid. That's probably a valid loss I actually see on EU. Only thing I can kind of think of is you've mitigated this point. But that's not going to hold you out given current context. So that's valid. Just an unfortunate one. And then this one's very, very valid. You've now induced a valid demand. You've got breaks off of this. You're with the current momentum. You've built more liquidity to the upside. And I believe GU at the time was setting up as well. So either or is valid. Valid loss, valid win. Okay. So if you take either of those, good shit. I would be happy with taking that loss just given the current context. You've got so much liquidity to the upside. You even broke and retested in here, so it's so valid. Just a loss, unfortunately. The only thing I can kind of pick on is you didn't mitigate the point. That's kind of the only reason that would be a loss. If I was being really picky, it would just be that you didn't mitigate the point, and because you didn't mitigate the point, there was imbalance down there, and this is now the A plus entry. So A plus, A minus, get cooked, and then take that win. So either or is valid. In terms of selling this thing, I don't see a valid sell anywhere. And then obviously coming into New York, I don't really see this as a valid sell area either. You didn't mitigate the area. We have medium induced and minor induced, but I don't see this as a valid area to take a trade out of at all. More or less see the buyers making more sense. Major inducement, push up, medium inducement. This is now valid to take a buy. You've also mitigated that bottom area. The timing on this is absolutely chalked. But break, push up, external break. No, there's nothing in there anyway. Then throughout the day, inducement, mitigation, completing the structure cycle. This is a demand to supply, so make sure you keep your other points marked out to understand that this point does hold weight. We've then induced mitigation and push back down. So all that tells us is this area won't hold. It won't hold long term, but it is valid to trade out of. Simply, if I go in, I reckon it's on the 5 minutes. So this is the buy I took. Now, the reason I was okay with trading out of this to begin with, just simply because this is a demand that broke a high. That and we hadn't taken Asia highs properly. We've got a complete melt off, straight range. GU as well was actually medium inducing. Now, further reading into this range, I actually messed up, and this is why I took the trade I did. You've got internal break. This is retest. So the reason I was okay with taking the entry I took was push up and inducement into mitigation. I'll show you the area I took. There's multiple reasons I shouldn't have taken it. So the entry I took was smart money trap, 2-leg, mitigation of area, internal break, inducement. I had that set. Now, reasons I shouldn't have taken it. It's from a bottom point that is risky. It's in retest that I didn't even see because of the Newsweek, so I didn't even notice. And it hadn't even internally broken. So this was completely based on liquidity when I was in a point that was more than likely going to be liquidity. So if you're going to trade from a smart money point, make sure you get obvious breaks, and that's the key. So what then happened is GU medium induced. EU took its smart money trap and came into its extreme. Now is when I should have been open to trading. So this in itself, retest take, smart money trap entry, extreme. This off of an internal break is a valid entry model. It's not one I trade, but it's one I have back tested. So given that was the case, all I needed was proof that this area was still a smart money trap, and that's all I was waiting for. So mitigation of this point, which built up equal highs, trend line, and had internally broke. All I was looking for was this to be a smart money trap. 2 leg to the downside, which on the 15-second gave a internal inducement into mitigation, which is a clear entry model for us. Internal break, I was happy to set this, which is where I had that set. Like I said, when you trade from an area of smart money trap like this, understand it's not going to be a long-term trade. So the first thing you've got to do is, if you're going to take a trade from this area, is understand how far can you run. Well, I at least can pull a 1 to 2 from this on a lower time frame. In here, I've actually got this area as retest, very, very small retest of this internal break on the 15-minute. This was a supply to demand. So supply to demand, take a retest. I at least knew I was targeting this, which was a 1 to 2.5. So I targeted a 1 to 3 exactly, which pipped me out to the pip. But once this was up above this point, I moved my stop to 1 to 2, I think. Once it pushed up, pushed back down and pushed up, I moved it to a 1 to 2. Understanding that this is just a retracement trade. Now, if you kept watching, this is where Matt had his question. Very, very clean entry. So understanding the current structure cycle and what's happening, this point should not hold. Only reason I was able to take a trade was given the current characteristics of what I had, but we've induced into this point of mitigation again. After inducing to a point of mitigation, this entire point's a smart money trap. Liquidity is below us. There's no liquidity above us. Once you induce that retest, you then fall off and start falling off to the downside. All we're looking for is confirmation that this area here is also a smart money trap. So what do you get on New York Open? You get an inducement into mitigation that induces high into the supply that took this point. Very, very clean. Understanding that this point will be a smart money trap. If this point's a smart money trap, if this point's a smart money trap, we can jump down to the 1 minute. Inducement high into that mitigation. You've also got break, point here, push, valid point, push. So this is now a valid supply we've taken, which is a really clean inducement for us into the mitigation with our current structure cycle with timing. Like I said, we're looking for this point to be a smart money trap. We then push up and take liquidity into the mitigation. So we repeat the same process as what we did to the left in the range. We then internally break. Now you can either go break even at the low, you can go break even at the next low, or break even at the very low. I would say more or less break even here is fine, but given current context, holding to the extreme low, given that you're 5 pips from the low, I would just hold. Because if this price comes back up, your entire analysis is wrong. Okay? If this is going to hold, it's going to come and take the high. Okay? The entry is off of the break, covering the next inducement. Now, if you look on the 5 minute, everything is filled. You don't need to cover any higher. Okay? So no worry here. There's no valid inducements for price. You can either target just a 1 to 3, or you can target that major inducement, which based on the 4 hour, and this is where your high time frame's got to be in, based on the 4 hour, what we're doing, this point is not holding. Okay, it's already been confirmed as a smart money trap as it's been tapped into, pushed up and melted. So that's where you would be targeting. So that's why you've just got to apply multiple time frames together to catch that. Runs 1 to 3, and then that kind of ends that. So once we come into Friday, we have now induced into the mitigation of a valid point, which I believe is a break and retest valid demand. It's done a 2-leg off of it. We've now induced into that mitigation, which is very clean. So once you get a major inducement like that, a valid 4-hour low take into the mitigation of a point, we're going to retrace. We're going to start a new complex pullback, especially when the first thing you do is break internal structure. So for me, this is a break. This is a valid demand to supply, but given this liquidity and this liquidity, this should not hold. Okay, so what we're looking for is some type of reaction, take of liquidity, complex pullback, confirmed, push up. And it happens multiple times. We had it happen, I reckon, last week and the week before. And that's just simply understanding what a new structure looks like. Complex pullbacks are the hardest to trade because you've got to read internal structure. Okay, break, valid retest, which is a 2-leg to the downside, which is a valid point. So this entire area is a valid point. What we did come into the session is tap into this point, come and take an internal low, which is the medium inducement. So we had break, retest, push, take liquidity, push, retest, push, all valid liquidity. We can even have that as the main retest. So coming into the session, really, really valid liquidity taken. What we then had was the high that took Asia high, sitting here. You had Frankfurt sellers in at that high as well because it's Frankfurt open. You've got moving away from inducements. So you've got inducement low, next inducement low here, like that. Internal break. And we're not sure if this is a breaker or not, if this point is going to hold, because it is an inducement high that is in a valid point. We don't know if this is a smart money trap yet. What we then had was inducement low into the mitigation of this valid point, inducement demand. We've then pushed off this point. We need to work out if this point is a smart money trap. What do we get the moment we tap in? Tap in, pull down, tap in, inducement low into the area of mitigation, quick reaction up. So that is now indicated to us that this point won't hold, which means this point won't hold, which means this point won't hold. Now this was a divergence with GU, so this held while GU took the low. The next 15-minute liquidity, because it's a 15-minute divergence as GU's taken a medium inducement, is our 15-minute high, which is the high of that supply. There's no other 15-minute high in here. That's the first target. That's the second target. Now the entry I had was that. I had an 8.3, so I just went off of this body. That's the last in mitigation point, is that area there. So I just covered that. What I should have had is that. I didn't need to target and cover the low. If it had come this low, I probably don't want to be in it anyway. So that's where I went wrong. Should have had that. Runs 1 to 3 perfectly, but I fucking cooked it and had that instead. Once it pushes through, break even, and then Bob's your uncle, it's gone. So that was the valid entry. I think it's a 4.5 in the end. Like that. That's the valid entry. You literally get pipped in and then it runs. Now, if you wanted, Josh took the break and retest, so he had that set, which is perfectly fine. Just understand you've just got a lot longer. You haven't got as much space to the high. He must have covered that. Okay, so if you're going to take the higher entry, you've got to be more aggressive with your stop loss. So I think his error was understanding that he actually covered this, which is the last inducement. But if you're going to wait for that break and retest, just cover the break and retest. Don't cover this low. He made the same mistake I did here with the mistake here. Okay, you're not expecting this to come any lower. Otherwise, you would have that set. Okay, that was the entry. 1 to 3 at the high. Fucking A+ is shit. And then medium inducement high, medium inducement low, mitigation. And I believe Callum took this. Internal break, pull down, which then pushes up, internally breaks. 1 leg, 2 leg, internal break. It's valid to set. That close, you just cover the low, and then you're just targeting the complex pullback has been started. And then this is some random Trump tariff shit that happened that he tweeted. So that's why that went. You wouldn't lose funded accounts in that. It's valid. And then that's the entry there. So valid to take that if you trade New York, should have taken that. Very, very clean. Yeah, Callum, that's a good trade, dude. Love some news that pushes you in the right fucking direction. So yeah, all valid, all clean on EU. EU was definitely the pair. Yeah, for once. You've got this trade late in the night, so I'm not going to count that. You've got this trade here, which I think is valid. It's just later in the session, but definitely valid. So you've got 1 to 3, which I think is valid. This one late in the session, so I'm not going to count it. You've then got this one here, which I think is valid as well, which I fucked up with placement, I believe. But that one's late in the session as well, so I understand if you don't take that. This one here, very, very difficult in terms of just understanding how to get in this, but I think it is valid, and I think you guys need to get to the level of understanding that. But it is a retracement buy, so you need structure. Something to understand with retracement buys in smart money traps is don't trade unless you get internal breaks. Trading just the liquidity can hurt you because you are the liquidity anyway. So you need to move away from the liquidity. This entry here is valid, so I'm going to count that one as well, just to hurt you, Matt. That is definitely valid. You just need to be aggressive on it. This one here, I think, is valid. I just fumbled that, so that's 1 to 3. No worries. And then this one's valid if you watch. So EU was the pair. So yeah, and that's not counting the late session one that ran 1 to 30. So what's that? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So there's 18R possibility on EU this week. Every week is very, very clean. Yes. It's not many weeks that aren't. So 18R on EU this week. So for me, I had a 1 to 2 on GU that I didn't take profit on. I had a 1 to 2 on EU I didn't take profit on, and I was up 4%. So I had 2 break evens, 1 loss, and 2 wins. My loss was not valid. And obviously, I don't trade New York, so that wasn't valid for me, and that wasn't valid for me. That I missed. That wasn't valid for me. And then that I missed as well, because I already had a win on one of those days. But either or, should have taken one of those, because that was Wednesday. I think I was in GU there, so I don't need to count that one. But 18R and then 2 break evens on GU. If you trade out of session, then there was 7R. So 10 to 25R, depending on when you trade. Big fumbled week again. We're on fire. So there you go. Any questions at all about that? Yeah, big ouch. Big ouch. Very clean. Very, very clean. There's no questions. We can fucking jump into... I might do the weekly recap, the outlook tomorrow. Let you guys have the weekend. Beauty. Easy, sweet.